Farouk, or do we start?
No, I think that we can start. The stage is yours.
So thank you very much to be here with us today. I welcome you very heartily in the name of the Connected Innovation Chair of the University of Technology of Troyes. I am Doris Gillig. I work as a hospital manager in the Strasbourg University Hospital. I am also deputy delegate from the Hospital Federation of France in the eastern side of France, the region Grand Est. And currently I am president of the scientific subcommittee of the European Association of Hospital Managers. And that's why I have the pleasure to be the chair of this video conference today. And I have the pleasure to moderate it. And I would like to underline that it is the first conference of a cycle of several more. We have organized 4 at this point of time. If it's nice, perhaps we will do some more. And it's the first conference, and it's co-organized with the UTT of Troyes, the University of Technology of Troyes, and with the European Association of Hospital Managers. And I'm very glad to welcome our president, Philippe Blua, which is the president of the European Association of Hospital Managers, and he will say us some welcoming words.
Thank you, Doris, and hello, everybody. I am very, very happy to be with you today for this first webinar in partnership between IHM and the University of Technology of Troyes. And thank you, Pierre, the CEO of the UTT for that. Thanks also a lot for all the people that work to organize this meeting, the Professor Farouk Yalaoui and from UTT and all his staff. Of course, Doris Gillig and the president of our subcommittee and scientific subcommittee and all the members of the scientific subcommittee. Of course, also Marc Aster, our General Secretary. And thanks also to the speaker to be here with us for this very interesting topic about data, because the use of data will be a key subject in the future key issue. As all crises, the COVID pandemic has 2 phases. The bad side is, of course, the millions of sick people and the 3 million of deaths. And the bad side for an organization like IHM is also the ban to travel, the ban of face-to-face meeting, because our goal is to allow hospital managers to discuss their parties, to exchange about what they do and what are the better way for the future. On the other hand, crisis obliges us to adapt and accelerate this change. So that's a good phase of crisis and COVID. And for a long time, IHM has been thinking to organize a virtual meeting, but didn't, or just a little bit, because we like so much to meet together face to face and to travel to do that. So because the COVID, no, we have no choice. The time has come of virtual meeting, and I'm sure that it will continue to organize after the end of COVID in parallel of face-to-face Congress. I think it's a very interesting way of working for the future for our organization, and that's why I am very happy to be with you today. It's a way to work more often together, and also certainly to reach another audience. So thank you one more time for this presence today. It's our first webinar, but there is soon 3 other webinars for this year, only with the scientific subcommittee, and I'm sure that there will be also in the future other webinars. So thank you one more time to be here, and have a good meeting.
Thank you very much, President, for your welcoming words.
Doris, ton micro est coupé.
Words. Professor Yalaoui, do you want also to address some words? Because if this organization can take place today, it's also your work.
Thank you very much. It's really my pleasure. Thank you, Doris. Thank you, Philippe, for the introduction. It's we have many things to see together, to listen together, to hear together. It's a big challenge for us to try to, I would say, take the opportunity with the situation to make possible to discuss about different topics around the healthcare. As said before by Philippe, we are trying really to create the opportunity to share experience and to share together all information that you can help us to try to understand different topics and different hot issues we are facing today. Based on I would first also thank all the members of Chair Connected Innovation. I would thank our President Pierre Michael, who accepted to allow this opportunity or to organize it with the UTT. Then really, I can speak a lot. I will maybe wait and today to hear the others. Please enjoy this moment. It is the first for a long series, I hope.
Thank you very much. It's a conference on European level. So our language that we use today is English, as you noticed. Usually, with the European Association of Hospital Managers, each intervention is translated in the three main languages, French, German, and English. But today we decided to do it only in English, and I just want to explain why. It's because if we translate simultaneously, as usually, it takes very long time. But it's possible when we meet face to face to take so much time. But when we do it per video, it's not good to have 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours of conversation. So we have chosen today only to do it in English. I'm very glad that all the speakers also accepted and agreed to do it, because it's not easy for everybody, and it's not the usual language. Thanks very much to you. So we will have today 4 very good speeches. They are planned over a duration of 1 hour and a half, a little less. Each speech will therefore take approximately 20 minutes. You can ask for questions and answers. You can use the chat, of course, to do it. And also the questions can be answered a little later. So don't worry, if you have questions that have not an answer today, you will have it in the following time, because it will be possible to see this video conference also in streaming. So I'm glad to welcome to introduce the program, which will take us in an amazing concept of the present year, but also in the future, because the topic is medical data, need for rules of scientific and non-scientific data reuse. That means presently, in these times of worldwide health crisis, the question of the use and the reuse of medical data is a main topic. How can we coordinate necessary protection of data with the efficient use of data to manage the crisis, to let research go forwards, and so on? The question of a possible reuse of personal data for medical care, for scientific uses, or for something else, for administrative and logistic needs. This is a very main question. What about the European GDPR? You know that the regulation that is called General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, gives us guidelines for the use of personal data on the European territory. This law context follows the technological changes, but also the changes of our society in our daily life, like everybody uses more and more IT, smartphones, e-trading, and so on. So it's really a central question in our life and also in our hospitals and in our research projects. The GDPR gives more and more the possibility for each European citizen to control what happens with his data, with his own data. It harmonizes the rules in Europe, and it gives a legal level to the professional uses of personal data. So the question our first speaker today also will help us to resolve is, how will it function in our hospitals, in our research teams, in our pharma industry, for example? To have the answers of these questions, we are very honored to welcome the four speakers of very high international level. And the first speaker, I will please ask you to put your video and your mic, is Dr. Mickael Meier, Pierre Michael Meier. He is President and CEO of Entscheidefabrik. This is in Germany. So Dr. Pierre Michael Meier, it's up to you to give us some information about your conference, which is entitled Combination of Technology, Sensors, IoT, Electronics, and AM Will Change Medical Practice.
Yes, I hope you can hear me. And
That's
I
very
hope,
good.
yeah, thank you so much. And I think you have also a picture of me. Close to me is a banner of our organization. If you like, I will share my slides with you, or should I give a short introduction? It's a question.
Well, it's up to you as well as you like to do it.
Okay, then we move on with the slides. So screen sharing. Here we go. Yes, I gave the slides, the title Health IT and Digitalization in Germany. So first of all, some points to me. So I studied business informatics, and also I have a doctor in public health, and my pro bono memberships are CFO and executive vice president in Association of Health Information Management Executives, and for sure I engage in the IT group of the European Association of Hospital Managers, and also within IHE Europe. I am assistant professor at the University of Duisburg-Essen, and I have a certificate in medicine informatics, and also hello? I'm at the moment someone mute my micro. So I hope you can hear me. Yes, and I'm certified healthcare CIO. Coming to health IT in Germany. Just to give you an overview, we have over 2,000 hospitals in Germany. We have about 500,000 beds here in our hospitals, and the number of billable cases in Germany are approximately 19.5 million. All hospitals are working with an ERP system and then hospital information systems or electronic medical record systems. This is a typical IT landscape we have in our German hospitals. We have here the area of facility management. We have here the area of medical technology, the enterprise resource planning system, what we call imaging and document management systems. So you also know the name PACS, Picture Archiving and Computing System, and also the electronic medical record. Here we have this what we call hospital information systems, or with administrative functions, and then we have the clinical information systems, and all is somehow organized in an enterprise-wide portal, and for sure there are instruments of data warehousing, management information systems, and data mining. If it's come to the vendors which are very strong in our country, we have the market leader is the Dedalus Healthcare Group, based in Italy, with approximately 800 hospitals. And the name of the hospital information system, what is very famous in our country, the name is Orbis. Then we have the CompuGroup Medical, with 3 product lines. They have about 400 hospitals. Then we also have the so-called Nexus Group with approximately 200 hospitals, and the Telecom Healthcare with another 200 hospitals. And we have the Cerner Corporation in our country, which have less than 100 hospitals and around 2 product lines. If we come to the digital health measurement surveys, the worldwide leading measurements are, from my point of view, the HIMSS Analytics, MRAM, so-called, on one hand. On the other hand, the Digital Health Most Wired Survey from the College of Health Information Management Executives. Here I put in place which kind of level our hospitals are ranked so far. Yes. So if you see, we are somehow in the middle. Most of our hospitals are ranked when it comes to artificial intelligence and all that pieces. And if it comes to high level, there is not so much. For sure, there is room for improvement. We come later on to this. If we're talking about IT and improvement of this and the benefits of AI or big data, for sure we have to think about organizational aspects we have in Germany, because all of this has to and I think this is or should be also an aspect of the European Association of Hospital Managers. Everything is all about change, so and leadership. So we have to talk about who is in charge of this. And what we can say is that we have up to 3 or 5 really chief digital officers implemented in hospitals. So let's say member of the executives group. We have up to 40 to 60% CIOs implemented in the role of a vice president, yeah, and director of a department is about 100 up to 150. And for sure, most of the so-called CIOs just head of department, yeah, and these are about 400 to 600. And if we talk about all the good things we want to do with data, and we talk about leadership and the executive teams, then I think this is very important to know. And I think it's a question we all have to raise in our countries. If it comes to staff and budgets, also an important piece, if we want to talk about the things we can do with information technology. Then we have to say that in our university hospitals, the budget for IT and medical information technology is about 3 to 4% of the overall budget of the university hospitals. If we talk about the hospitals between 500 and 1,000 beds, then the budget is up to 3%. And the people who are working somehow in the IT and Med IT department are up to 50. And if you're talking about the hospitals with less than 500 beds, the staff in the IT department only belongs to between 10 and 15 persons. And the overall budget is 1 to 2%. So this is a fact and the figures around this. Yeah? If you're talking about, we want to come to the importance and the strengths of data, for sure we have to talk about the health IT strategy. Somebody is talking about digital strategy and how we come to this, how we come to a master plan to achieve some goals. For sure, we have then management, corporate governance, innovation, goals and benefits, but we also have this point of services, efficiency and security. What has to be there, the security piece, the support of users and customers with respect to application and the implementations, because otherwise we cannot use all these beneficial services of big data or AI. And for sure, we need flexible processes for cooperation, clinical work, and intersectoral data exchange. But we also have structural aspects, what means plan, build, run, and for sure, govern. Without the installation of these things to operate projects, we will never succeed and achieve the goals we have. If we come to the point that we really want to go for AI, then we need also an architecture, what is not more typical, like I show you on the slides before. So we need an architecture what is much more service orientated. So not staying with a product architecture, staying with the service architecture. And with this, the overall landscape I show you some slides before is changing a lot. What we install here is that you saw the old landscape on the left-hand side. You see the on the right-hand side all that data warehouse, data mining piece, and in the middle now is something inserted with respect to services-oriented architecture, and also it's based on services created by integrating the healthcare enterprise. So we are talking about a really functional master patient index, an IHE registry, some gateways to external healthcare providers, and we're talking about archiving of instant data. So we are really in the position to exchange data on a secure base. Here, this is the killer application to really exchange data on a secure way. This profile within this service-oriented architecture based on IHE service is called XDS, Cross Document Sharing. And I think a lot of you who really investigating how we can work really close together within our healthcare enterprises, but also in cooperation with other healthcare enterprises, really know these services. For sure, we can go with this architecture also for complex structures in regions, and not only with discrete data, so 0 and 1, also with images and other piece of data to really build up repositories with data in a neutral format, and then to be able to work with this data in a way that we can really profit from the data we have in these repositories. Coming to a short summary, health IT challenges for German hospitals means finding solution for real health informational exchange. That means regional health IT platforms, creating real integrated medical technology and IT landscapes, best of breed versus monolithic systems, increasing mobile solutions for patients and the medical staff, decreasing complexity of IT services for technical IT staff, changing disruptive processes in the management of the hospital and the IT, and what are the disruptive processes is always the questions. And when it comes to the disruptive processes, then for sure we have the interaction with the consumer, or let's say the patient, that's we. And what we want to build up is this digital health record, intersectoral between the healthcare providers and the patients. And on the left-hand side is this what we all know, the institutional medical record. And on the right-hand side, we have the individual health records. For sure, we working on this in Germany, in our country. We stress both ways. So the interaction of electronic medical records, so the communication between the healthcare providers, or let's say health professionals, the doctors and nurses. And on the other side, we will also stress the interaction of the health professionals with the patient. Here we have a picture of our biggest health insurance
Dr. Meier, entschuldigen Sie, Sie müssten bald zum Ende kommen, wenn ich mir das erlauben darf.
Sehr gerne. Sorry for switching to German. So for sure, we have in Germany not enough money for all of this. For this and to create the digital strategy, we are very excited that we get our Hospital Future Act. Yeah, and within the Hospital Future Act, a lot of important things are financed, and with this slide, I can close my presentation. Yeah. So with this Hospital Future Act, we get 4.3 billion euros in our hospital systems to finance in the emergency area the interactions with the rescue services and the patients. We get the money to finance patient portals to really interact with the patients. We get money for the electronic documentation for care and therapy services, for decisions support systems, fully and partly automated, We get money for closed loop medication, for complete electronic order and entry processes, for common medical services on a common IT infrastructure, for online-based systems to show capacity utilization of ICU and intermediate care beds. So I think this is a consequence of the pandemic. We will get money for the telemedicine network structures and scenarios I show you. Yeah. For ICT technology to avoid interruptions of availability of systems. And we also get money for the reduction of regular beds and increasing of ICU and intermediate beds. For sure, we also have some restrictions to get the money. As I show you within the IHE standards, we only get money for the vendors if the vendors are using international standards for intra and interoperability. If we get a guarantee for information security, but this is a responsibility what is not on the vendor side, it's on the hospital side. And if the vendors who want to get the money have also to guarantee that they will use the application and services of the telematic infrastructure we built in our country. And I thank you so much for your attention. I'm sorry for having some tone problems in the beginning. So thank you for muting. And if you have questions with respect to the Hospital Future Act or the timeline and the budget or what we hope, what we will achieve with all of this for the use of artificial intelligence in our hospitals, please let me know. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Meier, for this nice presentation. I'm very glad for your explanation, because at the beginning, when I saw your slide with the typical IT landscape, I was afraid to have a headache, but with your explanation now it's very clear for us, and so thank you very, very much. Do we have some questions for Dr. Meier at this point of our evening? No, thank you very much. So we will go on in our program. Our next speaker, I'm very glad to welcome. It's our French colleague, Mickael Taine. He is Director of Digital Innovation and Information Systems at the University Hospital in Nizza. You know, the nice Côte d'Azur. So thank you very much, Michael, for being with us this evening. And you will talk about mainly, I think, the practical aspects and the need of our hospitals in the use and in the reuse of medical and non-medical data. It's up to you now to take the following.
Thank you, Doris. In advance, I'm sorry for my rusty English, and thank you, Doris, to fly to my rescue if necessary. If I don't understand a question or if I tell a big mistake, okay, thank you so much. So I propose to share with you an approach as a project method to explain how I present to my sponsors, my final users and patients, why having a strong base of data is difficult and why we have to work by design to have data that is secured and strong. So in our hospitals, for mine, there's 13 group which cover all public hospitals in the Maritime Alps. We have a large numbers of different systems which is produce of data. Indeed, each technical platform still has its own information system, which is not necessarily the same, converged, or identical from the one hospital to another. In order to be able to use this data, it's necessary to organize, apply the same interoperability repositories, and link them together. This is required a data management system thought out from the start, a bit like in the privacy by design of the GDPR. In order to ensure proper management of this data warehouse, several prerequisites are essential. Try to anticipate the use that could be made of the data, artificial intelligence, machine learning, innovation, etc. We have to explain the importance of the urbanization of the data in the information systems, the choice between structured or textual data, shared semantics, play computerized game. There's not possible with a paper. Make data more reliable in order to avoid the principle of garbage in, garbage out. So we have to enter correct data in the correct way to have a correct issue. Inform and explain to users and producers of data the use that will be made of their data. For example, we can explain of them the benefits for research, innovation. It's very, very important to share with our final user and patients why it's the data are stored in our data system. Secure data warehouse, it's very important because of the recent attack that we had in our hospital. I'll talk to you later. When necessary, strongly anonymize the data. For research, you can work with anonymized data. You don't have to store data that are linked to a patient or to an identity. We have to secure the systems that hold the data. We have some standards like ISO 27001, IMS, as we talked before, and it's very important to work at the security from the beginning. Explain to the people who will be working on the data that are handling sensitive data. It's very important to explain to our users that the data they work with is very sensitive. And we have to provide for reversibility if there's a problem or apply the RGPD. All these operations are expensive because beyond the storage system and interfaces that have to be purchased, heavy investment must be made to secure and make the system more reliable. License, salaries, time spent, etc. It must therefore be explained beyond the added value represented by such system, and it is not reasonable to save money on IT architecture and organization. In recent months, there has been an attack every 3 days in hospitals all around the world. Our systems are bigger and bigger and therefore more and more exposed. Data can attract malicious people who wish to steal data or worse, hold hospitals hostage to pay ransom. We have some hospitals that were attacked in France, and we have seen that it's very, very difficult to restart systems when we are attacked. Today, every day in France, hospitals are attacked, and every day, as a CEO, I have to help me, Doris, to surveiller.
To look about or to survey?
Thank you. All my systems, because every day we have a tentative to attack them. Donc, several hospitals have also been victims of such attacks in recent months, as I've experience major disruptions in their functioning and therefore in the care of patients, not to mention their brand image. We must therefore guarantee maximum level of security and confidentiality for both our healthcare professionals and our patients. Finally, with regards to French and European patients, several laws, standards, regulations are to be considered. There is the more complex as its personal health data. While we should be extremely careful about data security, we shouldn't access and completely lock down the data. You may be imaginative when it comes to bypassing a restriction or safety device, even it means multiplying the risks. It's more effective, and as I've tried to demonstrate this evening, to apply effective measures and to conduct IT risk prevention and education. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mickael, for this very good speech. It's very interesting. If I can underline the guideline we just see between the two speakers we had. Just if you take the word of complexity, Mickael underlines to be careful about this complexity. And Pierre Michael Meier told us in the last slides the importance of this increasing the complexity. So we can see at this point of our situation, the complexity is real. We must deal with it, but we must deal with it in the sense to decrease this complexity. And we are very hopeful in the next years, people like you can help us to go in the good direction, Mickael. So thank you very much. I see we have a question in the chat. The question from Lionel Amodeo is, what is exactly the closed loop medication? I think it was a question for Pierre Michael Meier.
Yeah, thank you, Amodeo. Closed loop medication is if you not only have a medical information systems, give also the order, so that you also have a dispenser, and if you then can check the compliance. Yeah, so you have the order, you have the setting, you have the dispenser, and all is checked so that really you can make double sure that there is a closed loop medication from the doctor is signing, the nurse is giving, the patient is taking it, and only with this closed loop medication, you really get compliance on medication. It's for sure for process safetiness, and process safetiness is leading to patient safetiness. And this is an important thing. So compliance and process security, safetiness, at the end, compliance and patient security, patient safetiness. So I'm German, I have a problem with security and safetiness. We always say Sicherheit. Yeah? This is what we all want to have, Sicherheit. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much for your answer. As you see, the Sicherheit, the security also was present in the ideas that Mickael Taine shared with us, because he talked also about the importance of security, not of course the security of the IT systems, but security must go until the patient, until the person, and that's interesting in our conversation this evening. So thank you very much for your answer, Pierre Michael. And I would like to introduce our third speaker this evening. I'm very glad to welcome Mr. Bart Vannieuwenhuyse. I hope the pronunciation can be acceptable. Otherwise, please present yourself. You're Senior Director in Janssen Pharmaceutica, and you're from Belgium, if I am right. And so we are very glad to welcome you.
Thank you very much, Doris. I will not hold your pronunciation against you. It's nearly impossible for non-Dutch speakers. The right pronunciation is Vannieuwenhuyse. In French, I usually say de Maisonneuve. It's much easier. So thank you very much for having me, and it's my pleasure to share a little bit a view from a pharmaceutical company perspective. And I hope in the meantime you can see my slides and that you also hear me properly. I'd like to explore with you also a little bit the topic of routine care data reuse, but also data science from a life sciences research perspective. So a pharmaceutical company, and just to introduce ourselves a little bit more, I'm part of Janssen Pharmaceutica in Belgium, which was originated back in 1953 by the gentleman you see in the center there, Dr. Paul Janssen, who really was a groundbreaking researcher within the context of pharmaceuticals. So, and we're still building on the culture that Dr. Paul, as we called him, has actually set for the company. So, as I said, what I would like to explore with you is not just the data, but then once data becomes available, what do you do with the data? So how about data science? And data science, for your understanding, can actually be used interchangeably with what is more commonly known as AI, artificial intelligence or machine learning. But also what I'll try to do is focus also a little bit on the real world data, which is just another way of describing routine care data. So maybe other than the prior speakers, my focus is really on the research. I'm not really focusing on transactional care. And I think to understand some of the differences, that's probably important. I mean, you should see my intervention here really as an opportunity to discuss the possibilities from a research perspective for routine care data. So I'm not intervening with the delivery of care as such. So when we talk about data science, we actually see 4 dimensions within any data science topic or project. And of course, no data science without data. It's fairly obvious, but still, if you would look at most of the data science projects, be they internally with our own data, or especially externally with for instance, routine care data, probably any data science project is still spending close to 80% of its cycle time on getting the data right. So all of the data engineering aspects are still really, really important. And I think it's important that we strive towards an environment, an ecosystem where data is readily, quote unquote, available in sufficient volumes with the right level of quality to support research, and also with the right level of granularity, with richness of data to support the research. Now, with regards to methods and tools, that's about the infrastructure, the digital pipelines, are the connections there, is the data accessible, for instance, but also around analytical methods. So do we have the right skills available? Do we have the right tools available to also reuse that data and to run serious research on top of available data sources? Really important in the topic of today, I would assume, is methods of which are privacy preserving. So think about inherent analytical methods that are not running along the traditional centralized data approach, but where the data is federated. Governance is, of course, crucial. Having the right proper oversight around the data reuse, making sure that the policies, that the ethical and the legal frameworks are available, both at the individual hospital, as at the network level, as at the data reuser level. And then finally, no data science without the right skills, without the right talent. And I think that developing the right talent at all levels within the university, within the hospitals, but also within companies like ourselves is really critically important. So whenever we talk about data science, think about those 4 dimensions, which always have an internal within the institution and as well an external component with regards to the ecosystem within which we are living. Now, bringing it a little bit closer to home as a pharmaceutical company, and where do we see applications of both real-world data, routine care data, but also data science. And I'm just, for simplicity, splitting the product lifecycle here in 2 components. One is the early discovery. The second one is then the later clinical development cycle. So we need data science, and we also need real-world data, routine care data, to actually gain new insights into the biology of a disease, understanding how a disease evolves, understanding what the link is between natural progression of a disease and the underlying pathological pathways. Really important. We can help with understanding, for instance, the link between structure and biological activity. That's for us a very important element. Is within computational chemistry, is to see from a structure, can we derive a biological target, or vice versa? When we know we have a biological target, can we then identify a new chemical compound for that? Maybe a bit closer to where you guys are within the hospital, I think that we see the use of data, reuse of data, and also the application of data science as a tremendously important lever to increase efficiency of clinical trials. I think you're all very well aware of the significant hurdles that we face with clinical research, especially the large trials. Phase 3 trials, patient enrollment is always a challenge. And so anything we can do to support the trial teams within the hospitals to better identify patients and pre-qualify patients and then enroll patients in trials would be really good. And that goes along with patient stratification, so predicting what patients might be eligible for a certain study. And in the broader context, I think we're all moving towards an environment that is much more precision medicine or personalized medicine oriented. So real world data will be the substrate upon which we will find the right diagnostic markers to stratify patients along their potential response to certain interventions. So maybe a couple of examples. So when you think about target identification, this is an example of a larger program that we are currently working on. It emerges from the anecdotal observation that patients, for instance, which are taking methotrexate for their arthritis, also seem to be protected against Alzheimer's disease. Now that anecdotal observation led to an exploration of underlying disease pathways, and we identified that, of course, there is a link or a commonality between rheumatoid arthritis and Alzheimer's disease with regards to how the inflammatory pathways are actually mediated. Now, this is an anecdotal observation. So what we're trying to do now is to scale this up at volume, such that if we look at millions and millions of longitudinal patient records, for some of these patients, there might be some inflection points which decide whether a patient will have outcome 1, protection against the disease, or outcome 2, a full flare-up of a disease, for instance. And what we then hope to find at these inflection points are underlying pathway molecular indicators that might help us indeed by identifying novel therapeutic targets. So that's how we try to actually use real-world data in a translational context to identify novel targets. A little bit further down the road is in clinical research, where large federated data networks, and I'm giving an example here of Trinetics, but there are multiple other ones, where the Trinetics network is helping our lead physicians who are writing the clinical trials to better make selections for their inclusion and exclusion criteria, such that the trials, that the protocols they design are actually also more executable, that we don't run into challenges with patient recruitment. And it's especially trying to understand this funnel. If you have a total cohort of all potential patients, but then you apply eligibility criteria after one after another, you get kind of a funnel. And by the time you've applied all of these eligibility criteria, sometimes you barely hold any patients, you have any patients left. So understanding this funnel is really important for our researchers also to design better trials. So that, of course, requires that data is available. And of course, there are multiple challenges with mobilizing data for research. These are just a couple of ones. I mean, of course, there are privacy and legal ones, but I would like to focus a little bit more on the semantic chaos. Of course, every hospital is using its own context. Data is stored in some type of syntactical structure. It's using some type of semantic structure. And to really do research at scale, I think we need to come to better harmonization, both syntactically as well as semantically. So there are a few opportunities to stimulate this flow and this reuse of data. And we strongly believe in the strength of public-private partnerships. So I think that either governmentally supported or non-governmentally supported collaborations in which we can jointly explore a win-win context for both partners, I think is really very interesting. Further, we're strong supporters of these principles, of the FAIR principles. So routine data, any data set actually should be findable. It should be accessible, it should be interoperable and reusable. Now, that of course does not equal open data, not at all. I mean, that doesn't mean open data, but it means that data which is available should at least be visible for the research world. And in that regard, I think we are, again, strong supporters also for this concept of federated data networks. Now, what are federated data networks? And we believe that federated data networks also hold a key to privacy by design, for instance. With a federated data network, all of the data remains local. So none of the data, none of the patient data ever leaves the hospital. Everything stays within the walls. Here, the green dotted lines. All of the data stays within the confines and under control of the hospital. Nothing happens with the data unless the local governance within the hospital or in the institution agrees with a protocol. But also really important to stimulate fast and efficient research is that each of these local data warehouses is using a common data model, which is ideally both syntactically and semantically harmonized. Now, we as a company very strongly subscribe to an open science community, which is called Odyssey, ohdsi.org. It's a global community of researchers that are focusing on reusing routine care data and developing tools and methods to turn real-world data into real-world evidence, which has a level of quality that is acceptable by the regulators. And for instance, the EMA currently has a strong interest also in the tools and the methods that are being developed by this Odyssey open science community. So a couple of examples. I mean, the first speaker was from Germany. There is a very nice example with a number of, and I think it's more than 11 hospitals currently collaborating in Germany under the Miracum consortium, which is coordinated and led by Erlangen. And within their consortium, they are using this common data model from the Odyssey Open Science community, which is called OMOP. And they are specifically looking at how can FHIR, which is, I think, the future for anything which has to do with routine care data reuse, but how can we better link FHIR to OMOP? And I think that that's definitely a key to successful and effective reuse of data in the future. In Belgium, we have a much smaller scale project in which we are looking at reusing data within two oncology domains, bladder cancer and multiple myeloma. Here again, we want to, with the participating hospitals, we want to create a federated data network. All of the data stays under their control. But in this case here, we want to go a couple steps further. We want to actually enrich the clinical data with omics data, like driver mutations that are relevant for these types of oncology. And we also want to make a step towards federated machine learning, distributed machine learning. Just as an example, in the past, what you did was the traditional central approach where all data was brought to a central place for analysis. So the various hospitals would bring the data, the various labs, for instance, would bring their own data. So what we are now going to try with this project Athena is to look at data partitioning. In a first step, we're going to keep the data horizontally partitioned, so no more centralization of patient data, for instance. So each hospital keeps its own data. That's horizontal partitioning. And we will bring the analysis to these partitioned data sets. And then in a second step, we will add vertical partitioning, which means that, for instance, the lab of human genetics will hold the information on driver mutations, while the hospital holds the clinical information, and we're going to distribute the machine learning across both a horizontal and a vertically partitioned data ecosystem. So in summary, what do I believe is required for a broader mobilization of routine care? I think it's first and foremost, it's a concerted action across the various relevant stakeholders. And we are always happy to sit at the table and to discuss with stakeholders like yourselves. I think we need to look at the creation of data which from an international research perspective has sufficient volume, richness, and quality. I strongly believe in the power and the promise of these federated data networks with a single common data model across the network. But of course, it will require also efficient governance across the network, but also within each of the participating nodes. And I think we should strive to gradual, stepwise enrichment of data, for instance, linking first-line data with second-line data, or deepening the data also, for instance, adding certain omics data sets to clinical data sets, for instance, for oncology. So a lot of work to do, but I think a lot has already happened. The models are clear, and I think it's up to us to start to implement. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bart, for your presentation. Do we have some questions for Bart?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Really, I appreciate your presentation. Very nice. You are making a link between different fields, between your field and the data science. I'm really interested. I used to work mainly in this field, applied for all the different fields other than healthcare. My question is, what is your feeling about the future? How will the pharma or the drugs business will be modified using data, using intelligent artificial, and is this something new or facing something new in this field?
No, I think, and I'm only going to talk for our own company at this. No, I'm not muted.
It's okay.
Okay.
It's okay.
Okay. There's a little delay, I think. So I'm only going to talk for our company, and I can tell you that data science is one of the key strategic pillars for us across the entire life cycle of the development of a product. So this is being supported by the highest levels of our global R&D organization. It has all of the dimensions that I was talking about. So we're really looking also internally. And especially, I think at this point in time in the computational chemistry, we are, I think, already quite far advanced. I think that we are, for some structure classes, we are, I think, achieving in silico drug design almost, such that we can predict from the structure of a new molecule, we can predict actually what the biological activity will be, and vice versa. If we need a certain biological target, we know what structures to look for. And I think this will further revolutionize how we do drug design, actually. And it's happening at high throughput. I mean, this is happening, of course, with high throughput screening capabilities and so on and so forth. The second thing, which is, I think, very interesting, there is now an IMI project. I think you're familiar with Innovative Medicines Initiative, which is called MELODY, and it's MELODY with double L and double D, in which 10 pharma companies, and we are one of the coordinators, are collaborating on their own structured databases to improve the predictability of the algorithms. So, I mean, if pharma companies are willing to collaborate on their core intellectual property, which are these structured databases, then I think it should also be strong enough for hospitals to collaborate on patient level data.
Thank you. Thank you. Maybe if I have time for one more question, Doris.
Yes, sure.
Yeah, thank you. My question here also, which is the shape of your future colleague in your company? Is more engineers, more people from data, or I'm looking that you are going through a transformation from skills, hearing people in the future.
Yeah, we're looking for the white blackbirds, les merles blanches. So we're actually looking for bilingual talent, as we say. People who speak both life sciences as well as data sciences. But of course, these are white blackbirds, so you don't find them very often. So our typical data science projects within the company, but also externally, have 3 skills. So we are really looking for triplets. So we want a data engineer, because there is a lot of work around the data. We want a data scientist, and we want a subject matter expert. And so I think having biochemical people or chemical engineers working with data scientists and data engineers is what we see in the future. Well, the future is here, what we do today.
It's challenging.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I propose you to take a little time also for our 4th speaker. It's Monsieur Philippe Entzmann. He's President and CIO of PHE Conseil from France. I welcome you very heartily.
Hello, everyone. I'm Philippe Entzmann from PHE Conseil. My company is part of the Connected Innovation Chair. And I'm very, very glad to have 15 minutes to talk about trustful sensitive documents. We will quickly go through the case of the serious injury management of our clients. Then we will recall the main feature of PDF, which is the format we build our project around. And We will finish with a sum up of the pros and cons of PDF as a trustful container. So we worked 2 years with Massif. Massif is a French insurer, and we work with them on the topic of following the victims of serious injuries caused by vehicles accidents. This is mainly a yearly process when we have to get detailed expenses about physical and non-physical injuries. It targets the victim, obviously, and his or her relatives. We had to link a lot of external references like mortality tables, rates, and so on. And we had to gather a lot of data. But this huge amount of data was in documents, different documents. Those documents were of many types, forms, expert reports, medical analysis, surveys, invoices, and so on. And we had to collect, merge, publish, and share these documents among different people with different businesses, medical, financial, technical, and different skills. And we had also to deal with many data-related risks as privacy breach, identity fraud, and false declaration, fake invoice, insurance fraud, and many other risks like that. On this project, we had to keep things very simple. And we choose to rely on the PDF format as our underlying key technology for storing data, metadata, scheme, and different things, and all the things we are working on. Let's remind some basic facts about this quite old format. It means portable document format. It's quite old now. First started as an Adobe project, and it's now standard. The last revision was in 2020. We use some less known PDF features like digital signatures. The fact that you can embed any metadata or any files in it. And we also rely on the fact that it's an evolving standard. It is quite interesting to embed such sensitive data. So let's see some of those features in detail. First of all, the main point is that PDF is readable. It's quite obvious, but it's the only format that has this kind of readability. You can actually read a PDF on any device from a smartphone to a server. If you compare with other formats like XML or a simple barcode, it's not readable at all. How can you trust a content that you can't easily read? We would trust such unreadable content. And that's the main point we lead us to choose the PDF format as our main storing format for our documents. We choose to enforce the use of PDF. So every information we had to accept or publish was in PDF. Everything that was not already in a PDF format was embedded inside the PDF. Another major benefit on using PDF is that you are reducing the double input problem. PDF can help a user filling a complex form, huge form with many fields, with multiple dates, with complex workflow and so on. You can just drag and drop some PDF on it and have some field automatically filled by it. For example, if you have an invoice, for example, you can just drop the PDF file of this invoice, and get the amount, the project description, supplier fields automatically filled, and added as a new material bill for the victim without input errors. If you have an expert report in PDF format, you can also drop it on your form and get the date, the name of the doctor automatically added as a new review line, for example. That's a huge benefit that we didn't expect at the start of the project. Reusing PDF as an input source for huge form. Another good point for PDF are the large integration capabilities. In fact, any document can be embedded inside a PDF document, which is an XML, whatever, even an Excel spreadsheet can be embedded in PDF file. Another PDF can be embedded in a PDF. So in fact, a single PDF can embed dozens of related documents. It's very straightforward and easy to integrate in CMS, ERP or CRM, because everything is encapsulated inside a single document. It's very useful for sensitive data exchange because, as we will see later, when a document is signed, everything embedded is also signed. It allows complex compliance checks too, because you can write rules about compliance and apply them to any document that you receive or you have to publish. On the right, you get a very simple diagram of quite a complex report. This is a monthly reinsurance valuation report. And this single PDF document already contains multiple documents, the data export, in this case in an XML format, and a list of signed reports in PDF format. So we can get all the documents in a single container. And when you import this in a CMS, or if you query the CMS, everything is in the right place and not spread all around in different places. Another interesting fact is that all of our work will not be possible without the existing open source projects. And in fact, we relied a lot on this project and we contributed to some of this project, and we saw open source most of our tools. PDF are great for this kind of publication and open source work. If you are involved in open data, that's definitely a good format to publish some data and also publish a readable form of your work. Obviously, PDF is great to have digital signatures, and in fact, you can have a high trust on this kind of document because of this electronic signatures. It has a proven legal value. It's very secure. It's definitely unbroken yet. Think about the fact that digital signature are the same technology that are used on the blockchains today, and we are 10 years from the start of the blockchains area, and they are still unbroken technologies. And we get used to use the signatures to secure the visual part of the document, but also the metadata and all the embedded content. Don't forget that you can have multiple signatures on a single document, so you can handle very, very complex workflow. We get used to work on single documents, PDF documents that have more than 100 signatures, representing a workflow for a span of over 3 months. So you can handle very complex workflow in a single document. You can also prove that the content of this document is secure. The integrity of the data, all the information inside the document are safe. In fact, it's very useful to prove that you're not cheating on the data that you're publishing. It's also useful to prove that nobody else is cheating on the data they are submitting to you and that you are embedding in the document. It's also a great way to create a market of trust service provider. There are many companies specialized in verifying the content of digitalized content. And you can also, sorry for the tip of this sentence, but you can also use this trust by posting some part of your data on the blockchain. You can have, for example, the data on your PDF document, and you can drop on the blockchain a simple hash of your data and have the higher security level of the blockchain. And also merge multiple proof inside a single document and have a single huge proof of all of it. We are also working on zero knowledge proof, which is quite a hot topic today. In fact, you can embed on your document the proof of some data that you will not publish, and you can those proofs are cryptographically valid, and they can assure the people you are sending the document to that you get the sensitive data you're pretending to have without disclosing it. It's very useful for privacy enforcement, but it's also useful for any other sensitive data. It's a very hot topic. We are currently working on this part. If you have no time to go in detail on this part, but if you're interested, feel free to contact me if this ZKP subject is ringing some bells. The last point I would like to show is
questo mi dà molto fastidio.
Is the fact that you can embed some secrets in your PDF document.
Vuole farmi fare le scale.
Sorry, but I get some.
Excusez-moi, the colleagues, we can hear you talk. Please, can we hear only Mr. Entzmann? Thank you.
Oh, okay, sorry, no problem. The last point is that you can embed some parted secrets, some splitted secret in document. I will try to explain you with a simple real example that we developed. On the slide, I talk about a patient, a doctor, and insurer, but I will take the example of another client with a cedent, a broker, and an insurer. In fact, the three parts agrees on a secret that is split, and the reason why is that the cedent can't reveal such. Let's start again in this case just to understand how they need to split this secret. Okay, let's say that you have this. You have someone that needs to insure some assets, and for that they need to access some sensitive data. The other part agrees to reveal the sensitive data, but they have but they need to keep this secret. So they agree to meet and disclose the sensitive data on a closed data room, for example, for a whole day or 2 days. They are all together. They can look at the sensitive data, but they have no way to keep the data, and they need to forget it. There are no way to communicate or to move the data outside of the data room. So they agree on that, but they also are aware that they could agree today, but maybe in 10 years they will have some doubt on the data that they showed 10 years ago. So they need a way to be able 10 years later to get back to the data without disclosing it further. So to get that in the data room, we set up a sealing ceremony when 3 PDF are created, containing 3/3 of the same secret key and the whole encrypted sensitive data on all the 3 PDF, along with a detailed procedure on how to reveal the data. So everything was in those 3 PDF, and every part go out of the data room with this single PDF. What happened is that a single part is not able to decrypt the sensitive data, hence the 3 red crosses on the left of the diagram. But if 2 of the 3 parts agree to disclose the data, they can meet, they can bring their own PDF and just put 2 of those PDF on a web page and get the sensitive data decrypted easily. And it works with any of the 2 of the 3 parts. That's a typical, very, very specialized case, but which highlight the power of the PDF document as a secure container for sensitive data. So let's sum this up with this pros and cons. So the classical, what you see is what you get, we can turn into what you see is what you sign as the main pro. It's a standardized format. It's with strong legal fallback. It's very cryptography friendly. And it has these interesting features. You can use this PDF as with a serverless or no database architecture. You can even think about producing this PDF, making them move different people and collect them back without any server or any database. That's a very interesting feature with all the HGPD and compliance and things like that. For the cons, it's overcomplicated format, quite old. The metadata are not yet standardized, and it's still seen as a paper output only and not seen as a trustful container. We use this approach, this PDF approach, on different fields: the serious injury management, as I told you, the reinsurance process, the invoice factoring too, and we are currently working on a use case on building diagnosis and also on technical document generation. We will soon publish the most of the open source tools we developed for this, and we are also opening a platform to allow the check of any PDF, the writing of custom check rules, and the producing of web form to generate such PDF. Thank you for your attention. I hope I gave you a fresh point of view of how PDF documents can actually be used as trustful, sensitive document containers. For any question or demonstration, which is better, you can reach me or ask me right now. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, Mr. Entzmann, for this presentation. So time is really over, and my duty is to respect it. It's not my best side, but I try to do it. So if you agree, I would like to take questions, but you can write the questions to our 4 speakers, and we will give the question and the answers back if you agree with this. At this moment, there's no question in the chat, so I think it's not a problem. I thank you very much, the 4 speakers. I think there were really interesting things that we find in the 4 presentations, the same inputs. For example, the need to use a common database model. It's Bart who talked about it, or Mickael told us how can we put the data in the correct way. I think for us in the hospital, it's a real question, and it gives us ideas to follow our conversation in this direction. So thank you very much. I hope that you have been fully satisfied about these so interesting lectures. And now I will let Pierre Koch, he is the president of the University of Troyes. Don't forget, it's our host, the University of Troyes. And he will say a few words to close this conference. In the name of the scientific subcommittee of the European Hospital Managers, I wish really the best for you and for your family for the future. Take care of you and stay in good health. Mr. Koch.
Thank you, Doris. I would like to again thank the organizers and speakers for this very interesting webinar. We've seen that the data science and IoT applied to the field of healthcare is an important societal as well as scientific issue. UTT and the hospital in Troyes, we've been working and cooperating for many years now on different topics having to do with the functioning of the hospital infrastructures and the information systems, among other subjects. We have joint activities within the Connected Innovation Chair. You've seen the logo of this chair on some of the slides. And currently we are studying the feasibility of a new institute for technology, healthcare, and aging. And also working on another project for a new chair on sanitary security. And also a word about Europe, since we are tonight together with colleagues from the Association of Hospital Managers. UTT is in charge of a European project aiming at bringing to life one of the first European universities, namely European University of Technology. And we are very interested by the perspective of this European perspective, together with this association of hospital managers. And I think that together with Philippe, we should be able to have very interesting European projects in the coming months and coming years. And I expect some very interesting scientific and technological developments with this European perspective. I don't want to be too long because I think we have negative time right now. So again, I thank everybody for this very interesting evening. Thank you, Doris, also. So I think we have to go back home.
Okay.
Thank
our
you,
countries.
Everybody.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Good
Bye-bye.
exhibition.
Bye.
Thank you. Good.